Everyone, nice to see you. Great that we could meet again. I think we're all zooming in and out so much these days. It's good that you could all make it. So welcome, and thanks very much to EJ for arranging our speaker, Albert, this afternoon. Thank you very much. And yeah, let's go ahead. Thank you.
It's quite a privilege for me to have Albert here. He was one of my lecturers, and he's also my study leader for my master's degree in personal and professional leadership. So Albert has had quite an interesting career. You know, he started with his BA degree, and he was a high school teacher for 7 years. Then he went on to obtain his honors degree in teaching management. And he also obtained his B degree in theology, and he was in a full-time ministry. We happened to, you know, we were in the same church denomination, and he served in the ministry for 14 years, and then he decided to, you know, become a full-time academic, where he obtained the degree that I'm busy with, the M.Phil in personal and professional leadership. And then he also obtained his PhD in 2013 in personal and professional leadership. And the topic of his dissertation was the development of a professional leadership development model. Yeah, quite interesting. He likes writing poetry. He's an avid photographer. And from what I know from class, he likes to go for, you know, to go to gym. So welcome, Albert. I hope I've, you know, managed to sum that up accurately. You can just unmute yourself.
There are. I must tell you guys, good afternoon once again, colleagues. It's really a privilege to spend time with you. Jean, thank you so much for informing me of this wonderful group and giving me more insight into what you guys are doing. And I spoke of interest towards the group, and he said, but why don't you come and share with us some things? And I thought, oh goodness, you guys are so grounded into all of these wonderful disciplines. What can I tell you today? So, Jean, thank you so much. I truly appreciate. Jean, a wonderful individual, is not only a student of mine, but has become a friend of mine. And yeah, I truly enjoy him and everything that he does. Jean, do you want to do anything, or do you want me to fall into the presentation?
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll just play a short guided meditation for us. And this is also from somebody that, you know, Celia and I have spoken about, also inviting to our group at one point. Albert, you've met her as well as Sue Cooper. Albert and I did, I invited him to be a speaker at one of the workshops I did for UJ last year. For the management team of the Department of Accountancy. And Sue Cooper is a clinical psychologist, but also quite a well-known Buddhist retreat. What's the word for that? She arranges retreats, and I've attended 2 of her retreats. So I just thought to, you know, just to do things a bit differently today. And what I'll do is I will play one of her guided meditations.
Choosing your posture as you relax your body from the crown of the head downwards. Taking a few deeper breaths to help bring you back into this moment. Remembering that, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, only this moment is life. Allowing the body to ground you in the present as you soften from the crown of the head downwards. Check the position of your head at the top of the spine. And as you move your attention down the body, feel that you are massaging your body with very kind and gentle awareness, using each out-breath to deepen that possibility of ease, softening into any areas of tightness, of pain, softening the contractions of holding, of bracing. Sitting, lying down, maybe standing at ease. Notice that the body grounds you in this present moment. And become aware that it is the heart and the mind that sweep you back into the past, forwards to the future. Anchor yourself in this awareness of the body, breathing in, breathing out. Only this moment is life. Opening your heart and your mind to the fullness of this moment as you feel your in-breath and feel your out-breath. Not replaying the past, nor anticipating the future. Resting in the stillness of the present moment. as you move through this day and night, trust that you can find yourself back in the present, that you can find your way back to rest in this moment, knowing that you are good enough, knowing that you belong.
And welcome back, everybody. I will now give an opportunity to Albert to share his presentation with us.
All right, Eugene, I'm going to rely on you for the moment just to tell me that everything is there.
Sure, sure.
Okay. I just want to switch on. Okay, there we are. Right. Once again, welcome, colleagues. It's really a privilege to spend time with you. As you saw, I can see there's a bit light on me, and I still have to get used to this whole thing of lighting, action, and everything, because I had to adopt quite immensely to this new way of living and new way of presenting, because I'm a one-on-one type of person and a face-to-face. So yeah, it's absolutely a pleasure to spend time with you guys in this day. Right, the topic I choose for today is Journey in the Spirit. Just a bit of background. In the academic world, one has to choose a specific niche in which you explore and more get to a place where you're regarded as an expert in a topic. I don't necessarily like the word expert, but it's absolutely a growing moment the whole time. So for me, it was not a matter of me looking for a specific research stream. It was the research stream finding me. And then I knew I had to go deeper into this specific area of research. So for today, a journey in the spirit. And although it's very much a spiritual journey, what we're going to do is I'm going to look at different conceptual models aligned to specific outcomes that I chose for today. So if there's at any point any question, please just stop me, just ask the question. My motto is always, I will always try and answer your question, but if I don't have the necessary information to answer you, I'm not going to make fools of you or me in trying to answer that question. I'm not that cheap with anybody. So I will tell you, I don't have an immediate answer, but I will research and I will come back to you, even if it's through Eugene for that matter. So what we're going to look at is, firstly, to clear up the fully fledged human being? What is a fully fledged human being? Because when we look at any form of investigation into the spirit or into the dimension of the spirit, we must realize that we are still human beings. Although, according to by the words of Tyler de Jardin, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience, but spiritual beings having a human experience. So for the moment, yes, we are earthly bound, and for that, we have a very specific humanity that is linked to very specific dimensions within that regard. Our second point that we're going to look at is to understand how these human beings should think. And now you can tell me, but Albert, you're underestimating our intellectuality or our knowledge here. You know, most of us have been taught how to think since we were little children. And we have been on that way of thinking for the biggest part of our lives. How are you going to try and change that? Now, colleagues, that's the one thing that is exactly my point today. It's because we are taught how to think since we are very small. And then we take that into adulthood and we actually do think that is the correct way in doing it. So today I'm just going to show you a possibility of how to think differently. And then to understand how we are hijacked. And yes, you immediately guessed it right. I'm going to not talk about emotional hijacking as such, but I'm going to show you how the spiritual hijacking takes place. And according to my knowledge, this is the first conceptual model, as I told the group of Eugene's students, that I don't know about any other conceptual model with regard to spiritual hijacking, so you will enjoy that. And then finally, we're going to look at the process of inner healing and how to get towards that. So firstly, I want to play you something of one of my favorite video or YouTube presenters. And look what he says about being a mystic, and let's take it from there.
Mysticism exists only because ignorance exists. Whatever you are ignorant of naturally becomes mystical to you.
So someone is a mystic.
So someone is a mystic not because he landed from somewhere else,
because
because
he broke through the limitations
of his ignorance
and accessed
life in all its dimensions.
So he seems to be a mystic.
So he seems to be a mystic for those who are ignorant of those dimensions of existence. Now, a mystical process does not mean it is otherworldly. There is no other world. Everything is of this creation. It is just that a few have delved deep into the nature of this existence. Rest have remained within the limitations that their sense organs have established for them. So if one's perception goes beyond sense limitations, as sense organs can essentially perceive only that which is physical, if one's perception of life transcends the sense perception, or in other words, if one's perception of life transcends the limitations of the physicality of life. When I say the physicality of life, when it comes to yourself, the physical aspect of you is something that you accumulated over a period of time. This is an accumulation. If you have to accumulate this much physicality, something more fundamental than that is there, because it's non-physical in its existence. And because your perception is right now limited to sense perception, what is most fundamental to your existence remains out of bounds. So mistakes happen because there are too many mistakes on the planet. You have made a mistake with your perception. That is why somebody looks like a mystic to you. So if you have not made any mistakes, your perception has become fully clear about the existence, you are beginning to see, experience and manage different dimensions of existence, which are not normally in people's perception, then you get labeled as a mystic. It is like, on a certain day, two cows met on the English meadow, English cows. And one said to the other, "What is your opinion about the mad cow disease?" The second cow said, "I don't care a hoot because I'm anyway a helicopter." So, if a cow realizes that it's a cow and become a full-fledged cow, if a human being realizes the full depth and dimension of being human, if a human being realizes the immensity of what it means to be human, unfortunately he gets labeled as a mystic.
Albert, you will just have to unmute yourself. I had to mute you because there was an echo.
Right, am I back, Eugene?
Yes, you are, thank you.
All right, okay. This specific individual so wonderfully states the importance of a mystic. But to be a mystic, as I've seen it, is mysticism exists because ignorance exists. And I want to refer to us as colleagues journeying through this process. The fact, however, is whatever you are ignorant of become mystical to you. So when we become enlightened, people view us as mystic. But in our own view, we are enlightened and not ignorant. And today's journey is to take that leap towards becoming more enlightened with regard to the spirit. The process that we have is to move from ignorance to awareness. And he so rightly spoke about it when he says it's breaking through life's limitations of ignorance and life damages into mindfulness and then into spirituality or a higher consciousness. And for me, it is so very important that in a discussion like this, we need to keep our feet on the ground. We cannot, my father had a wonderful saying, and his saying was the following. He says, "We are so heavenly minded that we are of no earthly use." And as individuals, from your side and from my side in the academic world, one of the biggest challenges that we sometimes experience is that we theorize and mysticize about so many wonderful things that the poor slob on the outside who's trying to get in just says, "Hey, this is too high to come by." And in actual fact, it's not the case. Because we are a fully fledged human being. All of us walking God's green earth is a fully fledged human being. All of us were created like that. The main thing is that we need to become deeply aware and a deep mindfulness to understand all of these wonderful dimensions, as I said it, to become aware of this, as he said about the cow on the grass fields of in meadows in England. We need to be in a terra firma, the earth. We need to understand we are fully fledged human beings. But let me take you back into this process. And this is a concept that I teach all my students. It's a personal professional, PPL, personal professional leadership, transformer and wellness model. And I want you to understand it because it plays right through our talk today. Number one, all of us, as we are sitting here listening to what I'm saying, or outside, my son watching TV, everybody has a specific input in their life. They, as that one word says there, they have a specific reality awareness. That reality at times can be wonderful, but that reality at times can just as well turn around on us and be not so wonderful, as we've so rightly experienced in the last few months. If I were to have asked you last year this time and said, listen, my dear, tell me, do you think by any way or means that in 2020, we're going to sit with a disease, a pandemic that is going to ravage the earth and the people on it, and that we are going to sit in a full lockdown in our houses? There's not going to be anything for me as a rugby supporter. There's not going to be any rugby. Now, that is foolishness by itself. For those who enjoy the red wine and white wine, I'm going to tell you, listen, in a country who's producing millions and millions of liters of wonderful wine, I'm going to tell you last year, this year, 2020, you're not going to have that wine. And those of you who enjoy this, they smoke or everything like that, I'm going to tell you, it's not going to happen. You would tell me, listen, on which planet are you, or what are you smoking to think anything of that? But then it happened. And the reality is just as unpredictable as that COVID-19 is. It happens. You would stand up in the one morning and everything will be all right. Then the next morning you will stand up and things will not be all right. Be that physically, be that emotionally, be that financially for that matter. So we are all experiencing this wonderful extremities of realities in our lives. But the fact is, however, that we are not aware of it. It's just that it happens and we try to manage it. That's the first part. The second part of this is that the middle part, the transformer. That is your life dimension. And the slide after this, I'm going to show you what life dimensions. You are comprised of approximately 8 life dimensions. So you as a human being do not only have a physicality, you've got a social part too. You've got an emotional part, a spiritual side, a vocational side, a financial side. And we'll touch on that briefly in the next slide. So here it is. If those dimensions are not fully functional and you are aware of it, then literally what happens is your potential as this fully fledged human being are inhibited. And you cannot necessarily understand why these things that are happening to you in the first place. In the second place, why you cannot handle it as good as somebody else might most probably be doing at that present moment. So your potential as a human being is in the scale here. Then the last part at the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see there's something called output. Now, what I usually say is, if you are not very aware of this process in your life, you would have in your reality garbage in. If it is not processed in your dimension, you would have garbage out. And people are walking around, not one or two of them. I can tell you, most of the people walking around on this wonderful God-screen earth of us, people are walking around and saying, why is this happening to me? Why is somebody else experiencing a wonderful life and I am just experiencing all this pressure, all this bad, everything that happens to me? Why am I the victim of everything that is currently happening? And it's purely because, as Isaiah said, we are not fully aware. We are not in the space where we're not ignorant anymore. And we need to become not only mystics about a situation, we need to become enlightened, as Buddha says it. We need to understand something very, very deeper about life, and not only life, but about ourselves. So let's quickly look at our different life dimensions. And this is a wonderful picture showing us our 8 life dimensions. You will see that right in the middle, the center of all of these life dimensions is our spiritual dimension. I do believe, and within the perspective that I carry in the academic world, that your spiritual life dimension is the core life dimension. That is the dimension which everything latches on. And in this image, you will see what I did was I made it little cogs. So these cogs are literally slotting into the one to the other. But if this main gear right at the center does not function, the engine is not working. And then you will see there are life dimensions, and if we start at the 1 o'clock position, you've got your physical life dimension, your mental, your emotional, social, vocational, your financial, and then at the brim of everything, your ecological life dimension, the area, the world in which you are living. And according to the previous model, the transformer model, what I say is, if these life dimensions are not functional, and I want you to understand what I'm saying here, functional, not in balance. Because there are people out there that would like you to believe that life is about balance, and that is really a load of rubbish. And I can tell you that I've researched, and I am researching that topic quite fervently. Because balance within these dimensions are basically impossible, because it would mean that everything would need to be in balance, the one with the other. And if you go look at life, my life reality tells me it's impossible. It's a dream. And balance is the most unnatural concept that there is. Because if I had to take something, so many things around me, but I don't want to use it because otherwise I'm going to break it and then my wife is going to break me. But if you take something and put it in the middle of your hand and try and balance it, you will see it's only in a matter of time. There's a small portion of time which you can say, right, it's in balance, and then you're standing and doing this again. But life has a rhythm. And it's like music. Sometimes the one dimension has a rhythm which goes up and the other one goes a bit down. And then you will experience it in your life. But to come back, these life dimensions need to be very functional in your life. Jean, you must please keep me honest on time. I get so carried away with these things.
Sure.
Right. So now the question and everything now, ladies and gents, this is a morning session that I have with my students, and And you can understand that I cannot have a whole afternoon with you just with regard to this. So I just want you to be aware of it. Now, I'm going to get to something very special. How should we think now? With this in mind now, how should we think? And firstly, I want you to understand a few things. Number one, you are a conscious being. Thus, you have a conscious mind. That means you're awake, you're in a state of alertness, you can see and watch everything around you, and you can behave. Now, that conscious behavior that you have is either driven by one of two places. Number one, your subconscious or your psychological self. And that is where you are as a human being, and most of us are caught up. And here is something very interesting. There's one thing, the subconscious mind can do anything basically. It rules and regulates everything. But there's one thing that the subconscious mind cannot do. One thing. And that is, it cannot discern between the truth and a lie. So, here it is. If you are sitting and watching Netflix or Showmax, or you're in a movie theater or whatever the case may be, and you are so immersed into this movie and watching it, and the next minute there is this shark coming out and grabbing something with blood and guts all over the show, what do? Do we sit back and take another bite out of a popcorn and a sip out of a Coke? No, we shriek. We say, "Oh, wow, what's going on here?" And why is that the case? It's because your consciousness is throwing it into your subconsciousness, and your subconscious telling you, listen here, this is a shark, get out of here. And there's specific brain processes linked to that that we can discuss on a later stage. But your subconscious takes it as the truth. And here is a very important thing. If you tell your subconscious mind that you cannot do something, you know what? He believes it. And the possibility of you doing that, not going to happen. And backing that fact up is a very specific neurological process. So your subconscious mind only works on what you are giving it. So if you're feeding it with a lot of lies, with untruths, with fear, which most of us do, then that is what it's going to absorb. And in the current state where we are finding ourselves in our country, we are very much driven by fear. You know, we're watching the news and saying, okay, when is President Ramaphosa going to talk to us again? Let's just hear what he's going to say. And then fear grips us and say, oh, I just don't hope he's saying this now. I so hope he tells us that this and this is going to happen. And when he doesn't tell us that, what do we say? So, yeah, I told you, son. I told you that's what he was going to say. This bugger, that's how he works, huh? That's how this ANC government works. And that's what people are saying, because they are driven through that subconscious mindset. And people are caught up in that, and they cannot move towards the next phase. And for us in this group discussing this today, we know that that next phase for us as fully fledged human beings is to experience that wonder and beauty of being human. Because at the moment, human being is survival. We are just surviving. But my question to you today is, and I'm a creationist by thought and by thinking, when God created us, my question is, did He create you in that moment to say, well, you're going to live with fear from this point onward, and sorry, you're going to live under fire and brimstone. This is going to happen, and fear is going to happen. Now, my question to you colleagues is, what does that have to do with spirit? And in your mind, right, 100%, absolutely nothing. And it's not even a trick question. So the immediate question that should come up in your mind at this present moment is asking yourself, how do I get out of this station? And it's quite easy. It's number one, raising the level of awareness. I just call that the golden word. For me, in my life, the times and periods of my life in which I was caught up in terrible situations, in terrible mindsets, was because my awareness was so low that I was caught up in this subconscious mind, and that was all right for me because I was surviving. Although fear was driving it, I was surviving this fear. Now let me share something with you, and I know Jean will never tell you this, but I'm going to volunteer this because I don't see it as a drawback in my life. I see it as a growing point and moving forward in my life. I'm an alcoholic, and I went through terrible situations, of which one was I lost my wife about 5 years ago. And it was because I was so caught up in this subconscious mind and just surviving everything that my life went into a state of tatters. Everything was falling apart. And I was just keeping everything together to keep that balance so that my life could make sense. And for most of the people on the outside of my life, it made sense. I fooled them. But for the people closest to me, they knew I was living in this fear. I was just surviving. And in that, I was in a destructive mode. Now, the good news, colleagues, is that although I lost my wife, I once again gained her a year after the divorce. Why? Because I started living what I'm teaching you today. So this is not a theory to me. This is a way of life. So out of this, lifting my level of awareness in understanding where I was, giving acknowledgement to where I was, becoming aware of it, then and then only I could move to a space which I call the higher conscious or the spiritual self. Now, here's the trick question. Eugene told you, I was 14 years that I was in full-time ministry. I was a pastor. And I was doing the wonderful work of God. But yeah, something is not linking up here. You're an alcoholic and you're a pastor. This picture does not align. And it actually means that I lost my way. I became so unaware of things that I could not acknowledge it anymore. My awareness was so low. But then I could pick it up. And then I started moving towards a higher conscious mind. Then you will see in the arrows, your subconscious thinking is fear motivated, fear driven. Your higher conscious mind is love motivated. And today I read an article in the difference between religion and spirituality in preparation for my classes next week. And the author states the following. He says, the main difference between religion and spirituality is the word altruism. A love not for yourself, but a love for others. And when that happens, when your priority not becomes the ego-centeredness anymore, but working towards other people and love towards other people, then this higher conscious mind slowly but surely kicks in. That's where servant leadership comes in, spiritual leadership comes in. And there's a big debate with regard to the difference between spirituality and religiosity, but I'm going to let that dog lie for the moment, because it's a very interesting conversation on its own. So what am I saying to you today is that your conscious behavior should be driven not from your subconscious mind, but from your higher conscious mind. Just to give a last fact to you with regards to this, Freud stated that your subconscious mind is comprised of approximately 8 different levels, of which the first 3 is conscious in a conscious state of mind, which you know, which you can recall. The other 4 you cannot recall. So your subconscious mind is so hugely embedded in you as a human being. Why? Because what we started with. But my father and mother told me how to think like this. And I was taught by the Sunday school teacher how to think. And religion told me this. And this told me that. And all the while, we are feeding our subconscious mind over and over and over and over again. At the bottom line, we become so 100% conditioned that we do not go back. We do not understand our full purpose and potential as fully fledged human beings. And in that, we cannot experience this wonderful, wonderful meaning as human beings. And as each and every one of you sitting there, you are still a meaningful being. And one of the biggest areas within spirituality is just exactly that, to experience meaning. When we lose meaning, we actually die. And that death is not just an emotional or spiritual death. When you lose meaning, you can actually physically die. And if you go to the work of Viktor Frankl in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he will tell you that. He will give you the examples of people who died in camps like Auschwitz, where the inhabitants of those camps lost meaning in their lives and meaning in their future, and they actually died. The question I have to you today, colleagues, is the following. Are you having meaning? Do you have that meaning that can drive you forward and experience this fully fledged being that you are? And that you can experience meaning in all of those dimensions, even though it's tough times. Because it's that meaning that is going to keep you healthy and well. So we need to get to this space where we are working from a higher conscious mind, a spiritual self that is love motivated and not fear driven. I'm going to quickly run through this model because it's got a lot of detail, but I want you to understand something that is very important, linking it to the previous model. Those are the aspects that we are carrying. Your neocortex, your thinking brain, your limbic circle, your emotional brain. And what usually would happen is you will get an activating event, some danger will happen, and then immediately your survival brain will kick in. It will short circuit everything of your neocortex, your thinking brain. You won't think and you will just react. And that specific behavior is driven from a specific area. You've got two of them, amygdalas. Amygdala refers to almond. It's an almond-sized organ that sits in your temple and which drives your behavior when there is a crisis. And that behavior gets you mostly out of physical danger so that you can now live in a survival. So there's specific consequences out of that, and the ego is then now served, the individual is now safe. So the next version of this is the following. There's an activating event, and this activating event is a child running in front of a car. Now, I don't know if you have seen this. I saw this, and at one time I experienced something like this, not necessarily a child in front of a car, but something similar. And without thinking, some of you will remind yourself of this. What does that person do? That person runs without thinking about his or her own safety, grabs that child out of the way of the oncoming bucks, plucks him or her away, and then they're safe. Sometimes people do that, and they even die at the cost of saving that child or that other person. Do they know that other person? No, they don't know that person from a bar of soap. So why did they do it? Very specifically, it's love motivated. It's a higher conscious thinking. What happens now the heart and the mind connects. And now this altruistic behavior, the spiritual mind ascends the ego. So it's not the ego anymore. It's not the personal capacity anymore. It's now the life of somebody else, the safety of somebody else. Getting that person out of the way. It's overruling the ego mind and sacrifice the self. That is spiritual hijacking. And people are doing it on a day-to-day basis, but it's not learned. Why? Because that individual already has that function of a higher mindset, a spiritual mindset, a higher conscious mind. And I'm going to just go through to the next slide. So, what is the way out of this now? I do believe that there is a process of inner healing. And what I've put together out of what we've read in the past and research comes down to the following. Our inner healing model, the PPL inner healing model, says the following. This is where we start, the ego self. The need is not to amputate the ego, but to transcend the ego. Because the ego will always be there, but we need to, through our spiritual thinking and spiritual mind, transcend it, activate it. So our brain code or ego-drivenness is comprised of all of those things that you see there. It's a materialistic self. It's a psychological self. It's power-driven, desires, physical needs, the five senses, only works according to the five senses, the chronological time, and what's in it for me. How many times have you seen people, and we as individuals, I have functioned like that a few years back, and I say, well, what's in it for me? If there's nothing in it for me, why would I do something like that? I must tell you, thank the good Lord that the child haven't walked in front of a bus when I was in that state of mind, because I don't know if I would have run in front of a bus to save anybody. So, what should happen now? There's need to be an awareness, number one, not of the spirit. Because you're not in the space to become aware of the spirit. You still need to become aware of who you are. who you as an individual within that subconscious mind are. Your awareness of your ego-directedness, this self-drivenness. And then there need to be a will to purification, to rediscover your essential being. And in this area, it's so important to have groups like what you have today. To get to that point of discovery, to move across the boundaries of ignorance into enlightenment, entering the realm of a higher consciousness. I've got a saying, and I know my students, they are fed up with me because every time I can get the chance to say this, I say this. You cannot change what you do not acknowledge, but you cannot acknowledge what you're not aware of. I'm going to repeat this. You cannot change what you do not acknowledge, but you cannot acknowledge what you're not aware of. And this is what this slide is telling you. So when you're in a position where things are tough and things are not working out for you according to what you have planned, remember we plan usually out of our subconscious mind, our fear-drivenness. Now the question is, you cannot change what you do not acknowledge? But the question is here, are you aware of it? Are you aware of the things before entering the realm of the higher consciousness? And here is a list, and I'm not going to read through this because it's a long list of things that you can change. Because you need to change in your thoughts, you need to change in your feelings, and you need to change in your behavior. In all three of those aspects. In your thoughts, you need to become more abundant. If you look at the bottom two in thoughts, you need to become meaning and purpose orientated for your life. Your feelings, to live in love and gratitude. To become aware of what you are grateful for. One of the challenges I usually give people is a gratitude journal. If you don't have a gratitude journal, I would really implore you to start a gratitude journal, because that is one of the most effective ways to become aware of things you can be grateful for. Keep that gratitude journal for 30 days and you will see the difference. Oprah Winfrey have stated this. She said that the one single thing that changed her life was a gratitude journal that she kept. It will change your life. In our behavior, one of my favorites, living in the now. And it's so difficult, especially in the time we are experiencing at the present moment. We are truly battling with it because all of us are so future orientated that we cannot understand what to do now. And we need to start to think differently to manage the now. People are so afraid of living the now because it means that you need to become higher consciously orientated, love-driven. I want to close with a song. Michael McLean has written this song. And I just want to check, Jean, if you can listen, see if there's any sound on the side, your side. Otherwise, I quickly need to reset the sound.
Okay.
You hear that?
Yes.
Okay, before we get to that then. This song states the following. It says, let it go. And in this short period of time that we had together today, if you were to ask me one thing, you said, Albert, if there's one thing that I need to do out of today, I would give this song as this one thing, let it go. Because there are so many things in our lives that we hang on to. And sometimes we only think it is because we've got some negative feeling about someone else that we had to let go of that. No, not just that. You know, some of the most positive things or most wonderful things that happened in your life, it's time to let go. There's something more beautiful coming. Maybe something that you have achieved. Why haven't you achieved something now? It's because you're so keeping and holding on to what happened in the past that you're not positioning yourself to something that can happen in your future and in your now. Start to let go. And then the wonderful and mystical, beautiful things will happen, because now the ignorance will have gone. Listen to this.
I can still recall the hour my father told me it was time to let it go. Though its mended wing had made it sing, he said the bird I cared for was not really mine. Let it go. Letting go, he said, seems to break your heart. Though it will heal, it feels slow to start. Though the pain burned within me so, he held me tight so I could let it go. Years have passed since then, and so was he, but I still hear his words. Let it go. There's so much of life that can't be lived when you're still holding on to hate and anger deep inside. Let it go. Letting go opens up the heart. There is a new day, hungry to start. You can't change what has hurt you so, but you will heal if you can let it go. All that's wrong in your life, let it go. All that is worth saving is love. Love will hold you tight. Love lifts the burden, and love shines the light. Only love nourishes a soul. If it's not love, simply let it go.
Thanks, Albert.
Eugene, Albert is still speaking at the back. Sorry.
No, you need to mute yourself.
Okay, there's so much of life that can be lived because you're still holding on to hate and anger. And the beautiful part for me is letting go opens up your heart. There's a new day hungry to start. And to each and every one of you, may you really just experience that in your journey in the Spirit, that you realize that there's a new day and it's hungry to start. And it's open and it's there for you. But you need to take the step. So move into awareness and get to that point where the enlightenment happens. You don't need to be the Buddha to experience enlightenment. Enlightenment is there for each and every one of us. Thanks, Gene.
Thank you. Really enjoyed that. Okay, so what I'll do now is I will open the floor for any questions or comments. Let me just get back into gallery view. Okay, so if there's anyone who would like to say something, maybe just put your hand up and then I'll call on you and then you can unmute yourself. Trish. Let me just try and unmute you. There we go.
Can you?
Okay, now I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question. Thank you very much for your talk. Could you explain what you mean by enlightenment or entering the realm of a higher consciousness?
Okay. Enlightenment to what how Buddha explains it, means that you transcend your everyday living. So what is of importance in your life, in the living of a day to day, worrying about this, worrying about that. He says we need to become enlightened, and in the Bible it talks about the Word of God, the Bible being the light to your pathway. So it's literally experiencing a new form of, a new perspective with regard to life, with regard to the people around you. So it's, as I have this light here, if I take it away, you won't see my face as it is. But here I'm back. Now, I am enlightened by this light, my physical posture, right? So with enlightenment, what happens is your spirit literally comes in and it enlightens your life. So now you can live in a fuller and greater awareness within acknowledging the reality that we are living in. But now you're looking at it from a different perspective. Now it's not a problem anymore. Now it's not a fear anymore, but now there's something greater, a higher perspective linked to it. In terms of your higher conscious mind, that's what we work towards today. It is where you move out of your subconscious mind into your higher conscious mind, and that is through the way you're thinking, feeling, and behaving.
Okay, thank you. Has that got anything to do with God?
Absolutely, it's got all to do with Him. Got all to do with Him. Everything. It is the absolute pinnacle of everything. And within the faith-based system that I carry and that I still hold in my life, I still believe that within us as human beings, the experience of this higher conscious mind, this higher spirituality, is through the living through the Holy Spirit. And in that the Holy Spirit comes in. And if you go to the works of Paul, in which he talks about the Holy Spirit, it's about absolutely enlightening from the inside out, and where you go into a deeper understanding, firstly about yourself. It's very interesting what he says. It's not about the people outside that you first understand more. It's about yourself that you understand more, and then it goes to the outside.
Thank you.
Anyone else? think what I'll do is I'll just try and unmute everybody and let's see how that goes. Gosh. Okay, just try that. Okay, let's try. Just bear with me, everyone. They always change these features and then, okay. It doesn't look like I can unmute everybody. So if you would like to say anything, please just unmute yourself. Father Christoph, I can see you want to speak, but you're still muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
I was wondering what is the meaning of PPL?
Albert, you're muted.
It is personal professional leadership, Christopher, and it is a academic discipline within the Department of Industrial Psychology and People Management, of which I'm part of. So it is a study of the individual person in a functional context within its professional aspects in which he finds himself. So it's not just the empowering of individual within leadership theories, etc., etc. It is the empowerment of what we believe leadership is from the inside out.
Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe just to also give you an idea of the subjects that I had in this course is like spiritual leadership, professional leadership, interpersonal, intrapersonal leadership. So yeah, very much in a leadership field, but like Albert said, leadership from the inside out. Anyone else? Celia.
Thanks, Eugene. Thank you so much, Albert. This has been really riveting, I think is the word that comes to mind. Really wonderful. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
I would like a little comment when you showed us Satguru from the Isha, and he spoke about there is no other world. And that's very interesting in terms of consciousness. And do you have any thoughts on that? Because most of us, I think, have been brought up with the idea there's this world, and then when we pass, we go into the other world. So do you have any further thoughts on what he was meaning by that?
I don't necessarily, I cannot tell you exactly what he means because I haven't been in conversation with him. I can only tell you as what you have heard. I think with regard to what he was saying, I can only speculate. I would think he would say within us as our boundedness within our earthly context, there's no other world to which we can go. There's no other outcome. We are functioning within our context here. Within my perspective, I have a very specific one. I do still believe that there is something other than our earthly life. I do believe that there is something that is of a better quality. And some people will say, but well, then you are living in this perception of maybe at some time we're going to go to somewhere else. And you know what? In my belief, I would do think that there will be such a day that will happen. I don't necessarily believe that we as human beings are going to spend our days here and then everything is finished up. I don't believe that. I do believe that there's something more, because that is what spirit is, because spirit links you up to something else, to a higher being, to what I know as God, and empowering me to communicate with him through my prayer, through my meditation, through my daily walk, in which I have a relationship with him, because I do believe that I have a full relationship, as I would have a relationship with my wife and my children. I have a living relationship with God, and it's part of my life, in everything that I do. So yeah, I do believe that there's something more than just life on earth.
Yes, I think so too. I think, most of us in this group would absolutely agree with that. I think what's puzzling me a little bit is the word other, no other world. Maybe he's trying to say from the Hindu perspective that it's not something other, outside, far away, that's going to come someday. I'm just trying to get my head around terminology, but that it's something present here and now, because Jesus says the kingdom of God is within you. So that's the other world we tend to associate with when we drop the body, leave this earthly coil. But in terms of an attempt to understand the total reality here and now, even though it would be of a different type of awareness and consciousness and experience. I had a friend once, we were talking about, what happens, when we pass over. And he's also from an Indian background. But when he answered in a rather strange way, he said, "No, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be here. I'm not going anywhere." And I thought, oh, does that mean he doesn't believe in another world? But I don't think he meant that. But maybe, and I'm adding another thought here, forgive me for going on, when we pass on or pass over, I think death is such a strong word. It's too strong when we transition, whereas many of us were in our group. A friend of ours said, when we drop the body, that's his expression, which is a bit awkward when you say to someone, my grandmother dropped her body last week, so that, anyway, we've sort of accepted his description. But having lost, a number of people, I somehow am moving towards, the idea they're not gone. I can still sort of sense, for example, my sister's sense of humor, even though she's not physically, I can't see her physically. So I think maybe what he was trying to say is that it's closer than we think. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just throwing out a few thoughts.
I must, but while you were talking, there's something that came up in mind. I think it's like a child when we think about this, and it's a matter of that we don't necessarily have the language to express exactly what it is. And while we were talking, you made mention of something, another dimension. And maybe we can refer to it more logically as another dimension, not necessarily being moved away to another world, because in the way that people can describe it, a specific world or another dimension can be very much related to each other. And if you go into scripture, when John was plucked away, he was plucked into another dimension, different dimensions. I think that is very much to what I believe. I don't think the dimension to what we're experiencing is that cannot be heaven. That what we're experiencing, what happened in Lebanon, what's happening in Syria, what's happening all over the world at the present moment, I just cannot see heaven in that. But on another dimension, at another dimension, things might be very different. But I'm talking, from a very from a manly knowledge, from a human knowledge, and sometimes there's another dimension that needs to be added to that.
Thank you. Yes, thanks very much.
Thanks. Donna.
Yeah, thanks, Albert, for your lesson today. I was just intrigued by what you said about life is not about balance. It's impossible, it's a natural concept. And I just think it's such an expression that I often use. And I think even during this pandemic, it's an expression like, you know, because a lot of us maybe are sleeping more or eating too much or watching too much TV or not exercising like we used to, or, you know, and I think I've expressed myself, you know, life is, I don't feel, I need more balance. And even when I talk with some friends, they also say the same thing. So I was just intrigued by, you know, that you kind of had a different, maybe you weren't talking about that at all, what I'm feeling, but yeah.
Okay, let me just give you some greater perspective with regard to that. How I got to this is exactly, I was trying to live my life balanced for a lot of the time of my life. I'm 55 years old now, and for the biggest part of my life, I tried to attain balance. But what I picked up in my life was, in this whole process of trying to attain balance, if you want to attain balance, it's stealing from Peter to pay Paul type of thing. Because now if I need to balance things out, you know, because the pie of life is just as this big. It's not a matter of that it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's our life is this. And just sorry for the illustration and dehumanizing ourselves to a pie, but there are slices in this, and we are trying to manage these slices in a way of balance. You understand? But if I go to, whenever I'm in question about something, I tend to go back to the origin, how we were created, what is the origin of these things. And when I go to nature, I don't see any balance. I see rhythm. The one season to the other is a rhythmic situation. I mean, your basic rhythm in you as a human being is a circadian rhythm that manages your sleeping patterns. It's not a circadian balance, it's a circadian rhythm, because it is balanced out within your neurochemicals in your body, your neurotransmitters. Your neurotransmitters, even in your brain, is not in balance, because you will find yourself at days where you're on a higher high than other days, and then other days there are some, your drive is better than your high. So in terms of that, your serotonin at days are lower, but your dopamine is for instance higher. Your acetylcholine, sometimes you're in a position where you're so docile and not, you don't want to talk to anybody, but your thinking is extremely sharp. The acetylcholine is then higher, but then your serotonin is lower. Other days, you will find yourself in this happy space where everything is just nice. Then your endorphins are high, but other days it's not there. I have to, most of the days, train to get my endorphins to go higher than it would normally be. And that is just in terms of that. If you look at your heart is not in balance. There's nothing balanced about your heart. Your heart, the whole structure, the whole functioning of your heart is in rhythm. I mean, with your arterial system, getting the blood, pumping the blood out, and your venous system pumping it back into your body. Your venous system works on a valve system, which is in rhythm the whole time, pumping blood back from your toes right back into your heart chambers to purify the blood and get you oxygen. If you walk, there's no way you walk in balance. You walk in rhythm. And when you dance, there's no balance in dance. The dance is rhythmic. If you go to music, if you watch a sheet music, there are actually indications of rhythm in music. If you go back to nature, if you go sit down the seaside and you look at the waves coming in and rolling in and out, there's only rhythm in that. There's no balance in that. And you can ask any surfer out there. There's no balance you can get balance in when you go to Valley of the Waves or there at Sun City. There you will get balance in waves because it's managed by a machine. So there's balance in that waves. But in nature, in God's good green nature, there's no balance there. It's all rhythm. And so I can keep on going and going and going of the prevalence of rhythm. But when we look at the human being, we try to structure him or her in a balanced way. And there's no, just to give you an idea, when I've got this in my house. I'm an absolute night owl, okay? So I'm good in the evenings. I work until late in the evenings and I'm on my best in the evening. But when I have to stand up in the morning, I'm not a lark, I can promise you that. But my wife, she's a lark. She's as chirpy as a lark in the morning and going all over the show. And I'm saying, oh, for goodness sake, please, just give me a moment. I just need to wake up still. Rhythm, the rhythm that different people, the rhythm in relationships. There's no balance in relationships. What balance is there in relationships? That's the beauty of relationships. Because relationships are dynamic and so different, and the one adding the one to the other and adding to this rhythm of life. If you go to the Bible has got in the Message a wonderful, wonderful portion. I cannot remember the exact piece. I'll get it to Eugene. It's that portion where Jesus says, he says, come to me, all of you are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. If you go to the Message translation, he says to me, he says the following, he says, all of you who are experiencing the troubles of life, come to me and I will show you the rhythms of grace. So even in the experience of the grace of the greater God, that is even described in the Bible as rhythms, the rhythms of grace. So yeah, and I can tell you, since I've been living my life according to rhythm, my expectation of myself is 100% within my gift mix. And now I'm free. I can live wonderfully. I still attain everything I want to attain, but I'm not under pressure of living this balance. So yeah, but it's a process. Don, I must tell you, it's something that grew on me. And when was it? I think it was last year at a conference that I presented it. And it was quite interesting how it was perceived also at the conference.
Yeah, please go ahead, Donna. Need to mute yourself, unmute yourself.
Yeah, no, I've got nothing to say. That was great. I think I just need to learn new language, you know, because it makes total sense. Yeah.
It's absolutely, again, back to our three minds. We are so brought up in a way, in a system that as soon as something comes that confronts such a fundamental truth like balance, then you would say, oh no, it cannot be. And then the logical part of it comes forth, and then the theoretical part, absolutely. And then you understand, oh my goodness, yeah. And I still catch myself after all these years that I've been hanging on to this theory that at times I would say, "Yo, I need a bit more balance." And then my wife Joni would tell me, say, "Balance? Is it balance or rhythm?" And then she would mock me, you know.
Thanks, Albert. Celia? You're still muted.
Thank you. Thanks, Eugene. Thanks so very much. Albert, thank you so very much. This has been really inspiring and very dedicated. And my husband popped in just in the middle of your talk to give me something, and I was saying, and he was just sort of looking at the screen. There's a lot of energy there. It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
I'm working off your energy, guys.
Yeah, it's a shared energy. But thank you so much. And I hope this will be the first of other gatherings. Eugene, let's hope so. Thanks so much, Eugene, for organizing it. And I think we will be zooming in for quite a few months to come into next year, I imagine. And we have such wonderful speakers, and this is really riveting. Thank you so much.
Only a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah,
sorry, Eugene, just a little notice. Some people are not aware that you're putting the video on YouTube soon after the talk, so that because it takes a while for us to get the next presentation, ready, and that next presentation notice has the link to the video that we've just had. So if you'd like to see it earlier, it is on YouTube. So thanks for that.
We've got a YouTube channel and we've got a Facebook group as well. So if you need more details on that, just pop an email to Celia and we'll share that with you. So our past talks are all, since we started Zooming, our past talks, have been posted there, and we've had some engaging speakers. Trish also did quite an interesting series about the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic, for example. And we've had a lady that did a talk about sound healing, for example, and I've had a talk about the divine name. Jimmy also shared with us on his PhD research. So I'm glad that we can do the Zooming and that, we won't let COVID bring us down.
Indeed. Thank you. So do we say goodbye now, Eugene?
Yes.
I can a last word. I want to congratulate you guys from my side. People think that the thought world is kept floating by academics, and that's not the truth. It is groups like this that just keeps the conversation going. And it's in the conversation where such wonderful things lie. One thing that I was taught many, many years ago, that the concept of university started with, many years ago in Europe, with a group of friends that said, we want to learn more before the academic institutions were there. And they would have they did not Zoom, but they would get together and they would talk about a very specific focused topic, and the one would take the lead and the others would listen. And later on, out of this spread the academic community in the research of specific topics. And it's thought-provoking groups that really keeps a conversation going. And it's really wonderful, and I want to congratulate you guys.
Thanks, Albert, and thanks everyone for joining and for your lovely contributions. So, I almost want to sound like what they call a YouTuber. Subscribe, click on the bell, subscribe to our channel, like our videos, join our Facebook, and stay safe. And yeah, looking forward to our next meeting on Mystic Matters on Zoom. Thanks, Celia. Thanks, Albert. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.